Hey, hey, party people. So on Sunday, I woke up and decided it was a great day for upcycling a jean jacket I picked up at a flea market in Silver Lake. So here is the before shot of it's fairly old and it's beat up. It's got a huge rip in the back yoke and it's kind of worn at the edges and just like kind of nicely beat up and soft. And I could just wear it, but I was like, let's have some fun. I have this jacket that I got at an indie fashion designers event in Poland like 10 years ago. And I love the fabric, but not the style so much. So the other day, I just picked it apart. I picked all the stitches and because I wanted to use the fabric and I could have just cut it at the seams, but I wanted to make sure I had as much fabric as possible. So I picked at it and when I rip seams, I always use an X-Acto knife. I don't use a seam ripper. I use an X-Acto knife, a really small, skinny one, and I find to have better control. It works far better overall than a seam ripper. So the first thing I did was to open the back so I could do the largest panels first. And the lace, well, it's not lace, it's embroidered flowers. The embroidered jacket was a fairly boxy shape. So I could kind of suss out the grain line. It's not a perfect grain line match, but the general direction is there. So I went seam to seam and pinned as smoothly as possible to the main back panel of the denim. And I just top stitched through all the layers, the embroidery and the denim, the welt along the welt seams of the center back panel. And then I cut away the denim in front of the embroidery when I was done. And now, peekaboo. I call this my stained glass denim jacket because the the edges where the welt seams are, like the way they frame the embroidered fabric just kind of reads like stained glass to me. So I call this the stained glass flower jacket. And so I did that and I kept going with the other panels. I wasn't sure how many of the panels I wanted to redo in the embroidered fabric. I was kinda texting with my girlfriend Susie, and she was like, "Maybe we just take everything out, so all you have is, like, the skeleton of the jacket where the welt seams are." I'm like, "Alright, well, let's see how much fabric I have and how far I can go." So then I did the side backs, and then I did the front yoke pieces using the big patch pockets from the original jacket. I had to patch a few areas, but because the fabric is kind of busy, like you don't really see where I've patched it unless you get really close or you like start to pay attention or you're like trying to look for them. And then she was like, we were talking about the sleeve, and she's like, what if you just do the undersleeve and not the top sleeve? And I'm like, but the undersleeve is so skinny that I don't know if you'll really see it. And I actually sent her that picture, like, look how skinny the undersleeve is. So I couldn't do the sleeve, the top sleeve, the same way I had done the outer panels because the cylindrical shape, like, I couldn't exactly, like, wrap it and flat stitch it down like a quilt like I did before, and so I actually had to cut away the denim panel, and as you see here, I've left the undersleeve sewn to the jacket, took off the top sleeve, laid it onto a panel of the embroidery, and cut a half-inch seam allowance all the way around. I also had to shorten the whole sleeve because it's such an oversized style. It's actually a men's jacket that my hands were covered. So I cut right at the top of the placket. And because it tapers, the top piece is so much bigger than the bottom piece that I stitched in a tuck. So that little tuck in there is deliberate so that I can get the welt seams to match on the undersleeve. And then I ended up sewing the placket shut, like straightening the cuff and sewing, just top stitching it down. So that is what the sleeve looks like from the underside when it's all put together after I shortened the sleeve and made the lace panel shorter, and I put in the tuck, stitched down the placket, and all that good stuff. So, yeah, the sleeves actually took probably like 50% of the entire time, and the rest of the jacket took the other 50%. But I'm really happy with the length of the sleeve now. It just would have bothered me. So I also gathered the embroidered fabric into the cuff because it was a little bit wider instead of putting in the tucks that you kind of normally would see on a shirt sleeve. And the slight Busani effect, I think, works really well with the fabrication here. So, yeah, this is what it looks like. And I was like, you know what? Let me leave the house and run around in it and kind of get a feel for how it feels on my body, if I like it, if I would change anything. Like, you just never know until you kind of live in a garment. So I wore this out to go run errands. You see, kind of like where the welt seams are, kind of looks like stained glass. The front, I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do like the skinny panels right on either side of the center front placket and put in the embroidered flowers in there because I did have a little bit more fabric left. And I'm like, let's hold off on that. Let's go run around. But here's a little bit of a close up. And yeah, I kind of like how it's already fraying a little bit from just me handling it a lot. I'm gonna like it more the more it frays. That's just my personal style. And here I am running errands. When I was running errands, what I learned about myself is the back neck was itchy to me. I'm kind of sensitive there anyway. So I decided to grab a ribbon from my stash and sew it along the inside collar where it joins the body of the jacket. So here are my options. Again, I didn't want to buy anything for this like extra. I was already just merging these two jackets together. So I like the narrower one. The orange one is really beautiful. It's kind of iridescent and gorgeous, and I'm kind of hoping to save it for a different project. The yellow is not as silky smooth as the black, but I think it's a better color match in case anyone sees the inside of the jacket. So I went with that, making sure to fold down the ends of the ribbon when I sewed it so the ends wouldn't fray. And yeah, once I top stitch that ribbon along that max seam, doesn't bother me anymore. It feels really nice. I barely feel anything. So even if the grosgrain is a little rougher than the black satin, not enough for it to bother me. And I don't know, when I wear the jacket, you could barely see the ribbon, but I think the yellow looks nice because there are bits of yellow sprayed like yellow flowers in the design of the white fabric. So I think that worked out really well. Like when I did this, the hook is normally on the inside, but I actually pushed it to the back because I didn't want that bothering the back of my neck. And then I took my scissors and I just trimmed all the edges of the denim as neatly as possible, clipped all the loose threads, got as real close to all the welt seams and edges as closely as possible. And I gave it a good press. And you might laugh at the idea of ironing denim, but I don't know if you can see, but it just kind of relaxed the whole jacket. Like I gave the whole jacket like a really good steam press and it just falls better as opposed to kind of like stiffly tenting out. It just kind of falls. Maybe I just softened the whole thing, but it kind of falls a lot nicer now, and everything just looks cleaner. Everything, all the edges are cleaner and smoother and more even. And I was going to an event for my friend, and I knew there was going to be some fashion peeps there. So I was like, you know what? This jacket is my whole personality now. I really love how it turned out. I actually, when ended up going to the event, actually, somebody did ask me if I would be willing to teach a workshop teaching people how to make a jacket like that. Like if they brought in their own like jean jacket and their second fabric. And I was like, actually, that sounds really fun. And do I know if it's going to go anywhere? No, I don't, but we'll see. You know, we have these conversations at places. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, I'm totally down to teach that workshop because I had so much fun making this jacket. And I can't wait for my next upcycling project so that I can just mess around and make stuff and have fun. All right, drop me your questions below and I'll see you in the next video.